feel like leadership is less trailblazing and more bushwhacking through chaos with a plastic spork? I get it. If you're overwhelmed, under-resourced, and wondering when exactly you became the official fire putter outer, you're not alone. Leadership is wild, but you don't have to wander through it unprepared. Grab your copy of Leadership on the Rocks: How to Survive, Adapt, and Succeed in the Wilderness of Leadership. It's the ultimate survival guide for leaders who've been handed a title and a to-do list, but not a compass. Because you can lead with clarity, courage, and purpose, even when it feels like you're herding cats in a hurricane. Pick it up wherever you buy books, and let's navigate this wilderness together.
I started to discover what resistance really was unmet needs. So them resisting me and I'm resisting them, right? So my resistance to their resistance was keeping it in place. My resistance was actually judgment. By the way, a should, when we should something, is expectation plus judgment.
Oh, that's so good. This is the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, where we equip and empower leaders like you to thrive in and create harmony between your professional and personal lives. I'm your host, Bethany Rees, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking with Becca Silver about how to lead through resistance using a human-centered approach that creates real change without relying on mandates or manipulation. Becca Silver is a nationally recognized expert in educational coaching and leadership development with 20 plus years of experience helping educators, coaches, and school leaders grow from the inside out. She's the founder of the Whole Educator and host of the Coaching the Whole Educator podcast, where she brings real talk and practical strategies to those navigating the complex work of leading change. Known for her human-centered approach, Becca helps leaders coach through resistance and go beyond buy-in, not with mandates, but with precision, clarity, and a deep understanding of adult development. Backed by a master's in organizational leadership and learning with a focus on human development, she's a sought-after speaker for ASCD, the Southern Regional Education Board, State Departments of Education, Coach Fest, and more. Becca has empowered thousands of educators across the U.S. and internationally to lead with courage, resilience, and a mindset that fuels lasting progress. Welcome to the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, Becca. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks, Bethany. I am pumped to be here.
Oh, man. All right. So people listening, they know I was an educator. You're an educator. But you know what? We bring a lot to the table, especially in leadership, because in education, you're not only leading students, the littles, but you're leading the bigs too. So I'm excited to learn from you because let's be real. As a leader, your greatest asset is your people, but they're also your biggest heartache, your biggest headache, especially when they're resistant to the change that you're leading. And so, you're an educator, you know how to connect people to content, but you've also worked with, and I love this, thousands of adults. And y'all, it doesn't matter the industry you're in, people are people everywhere you go. And so, Becca, you're really an expert in the people field.
Yes.
And so I've heard you say, you said resistance isn't the problem, it's a signal. And so I want to start with just this mindset thing. What shifted in your own mindset that led you to see resistance not as a barrier, but as a clue?
Yeah. So just a little bit extra about my background and my history. I was a teacher for 10 years. And when I became an instructional coach, I also became a life coach. And at the beginning of my instructional coaching at schools, I was wildly ineffective. I was going into classrooms. I was like, here's my opinion and here's how I think you should change. And they were like, yeah, sure. And then they weren't changing their ways, right? Like things weren't changing in classrooms. And it wasn't until I started connecting what I was learning in my life coaching training to my instructional coaching, that human-centered approach, that change started to take hold in a very real and meaningful way. Another piece of my history is as a teacher, I was labeled as resistant in a lot of the schools that I worked in. And so that's often not necessarily the case with the coaches and leaders that I work. Often people were like, kind of like happy to employ changes. And I wasn't. I bucked against change often. And so I started to put together, this was my experience as a teacher. And then when I started working with teachers, I was like, oh, isn't this interesting? When I come in with the change, I'm like, this is a great idea. You should implement
Mm-hmm.
this change, right? And they
Yeah.
were kind of digging in their heels against that change. I started to put two and two together, like, oh, I experienced resistance. They're experiencing resistance. And I want to say something about my language. I don't call people resistant. I don't say you are a resistant
Ooh.
person, a resistant teacher. And it's easier to say it, resistant teacher, right? I say the long way, which is much more accurate. It's a person experiencing resistance, right? A teacher
That's
experiencing
so good. You're
resistance.
not putting that label on them. So
Yeah.
often, whenever we speak those labels over people, a lot of times they accept it, and we accept it as well of that's who they are. And the label just covers up what's really going on. I love that so much. That is such a good like mental tweak of how we
Yes.
speak about people. So good.
Yes. Yes. The beautiful thing about someone experiencing something is we all experience sadness, we all experience
Hmm.
joy, and it's something we move through. I'm not permanently sad or
Yeah.
permanently joyful, right? It's just an experience I move through, just like people experiencing resistance. And another thing I want to mention around resistance is we all experience resistance, right? Something, an example I like to give is think about your mother-in-law, right?
I
And
got to
I
be
get
careful
chuck
what I say. I have a fabulous one.
yes, yes, and chuckles of recognition, right? Or a family member in general. We all have that family member that we're like, ooh, at reunions, like I may not hang out with you too often, right? We have people we resist, we have things we resist, like the gym. I currently have that relationship with the gym,
Hmm.
right? And so this is actually a very human experience. And so one of the things I have a mission in life is to neutralize resistance. This is an experience we have, not a bad thing that someone is being.
Oh, I love it so much. And in thinking about one thing I heard, and you telling your story and your background is as you turn to serve others, you've quickly
Mhm,
recognized you cannot go in and tell people what to do. You're gonna have more of that shock face of what? You don't think like me, you don't act like me, you don't do things the
mhm,
way that I would do them. And so that's a huge shock that I think a lot of leaders have is whenever they engage with people who are completely different than them. So you have that. But as your heart starts to change to truly serve them, you know who's the one that grows the most is
mhm.
yourself. And I
Yeah.
heard you say that you recognized that, ooh, I was participating in some resistance and I wasn't sure why. And this helped me figure that out. So, what changed in your brain besides just the emotion that everybody goes through
Mhm,
of feeling resistant against change,
mhm,
but really viewing it not as that barrier, but as that
mhm,
clue of, hey, I need to dive deeper into this to find out the root cause behind some of
mhm.
the behaviors that are showcasing resistance?
When I was experiencing the resistance from teachers, I realized, and this is something I was learning in my life coaching training, I was resisting them. So there, Carl Jung of the psychology world says this: what you resist persists. And
Oh.
it's something I've known for many, many years. And what I realized was when I had the thought, they shouldn't be that way, right? They should,
Mm-hmm.
you know, do what I'm telling them to do because it's what's
Yeah.
best for children. That was actually my resistance, right? And I'm going slowly here because I'm going to say resistance a lot. So, them resisting me and I'm resisting them, right? So, my
Mm-hmm.
resistance to their resistance was keeping it in place. What you resist persists. I was having their resistance persist. So I
Ah.
had to shift from judgment because my resistance was actually judgment. By the way, a should, when we should something,
Mm-hmm.
is expectation plus judgment.
Oh,
Or,
oh, that's so good. Say that one more time. Say
yeah,
that one more time.
it's when we should someone, it's expectation plus judgment.
Mm.
And what we want to shift to, we want to shift from a should to support. Okay. And what support is expectation plus curiosity.
Oh, so good. You know, the
So,
visual I have in my brain, and people listening know that I'm a visual thinker. I'm picturing magnets. You know, whenever you have the end of magnets that just resist each other and they're pushing away, you physically cannot put them together.
yeah.
That's the way that it feels. And it takes one party turning your magnet around to where you're now attracting
Mhm.
the person. So that curiosity is now staying open and like drawing them in, or you being drawn towards them of saying, I want to learn more about your thinking process behind this. So that visual that I had was two magnets pushing until one of the magnets gets turned around the other way.
That's a really great visual because that's the experience that when my coaches and leaders really discover how to shift from their should to support, they
Hmm.
find themselves from repelling the people they work with to attracting them, right? And the behaviors
Hmm.
are they're people avoiding them to showing up at their office door.
Yes.
Right. And so that what I discovered, right? So I was like, okay, how do I show up with curiosity? And so as I started asking curious questions of them, showing up, asking them, how's it going? What are your pain points? What are you challenged
Hmm.
by? Right. I started to discover what resistance really was unmet needs.
Oh, say that one more time. What is a resistance?
What causes resistance is unmet needs.
Mm.
And so I I was like, "Oh my gosh." And so, one of the things I know we kind of say often, and I say it very, very often, is we don't want to treat people the way we want to be treated. We want to treat
Hmm.
them the way they want to be treated,
Yeah.
right? And so I had to figure out what did they need, not what I thought they should need, right? What
Hmm.
did they actually need? So then I dug into the research and I was like, how do I figure out what people need? I really started to ask myself, can I create a framework that helps me and leaders start to diagnose what people need?
That's so good. And can I just pause for one moment because everything that you've just said, I want people to take stock in this because what you're speaking is not just about leading adults. It's about leading with your spouse, partnering with your spouse. It's also leading your own children.
Mhm.
And whenever there is a behavior, there's usually a red flag need behind that behavior. And we can call it resistance, we can call it whatever. There's multiple things. It just depends on the relationship and the situation. But everything that you just said is so applicable to all of those situations. But we're diving back into leadership, talking with adults now. But I just had to
Yeah.
have that pause moment of go back and listen to this episode again through different points of view. We're
hmm
doing this one now with adults and leaders, but then go back and listen in as a parent, as a spouse. Where
hmm
there's resistance, there's an unmet need. And woo, it's
hmm
going to blow your mind. So good.
hmm Yes. Yeah, and my framework actually applies to all humans, right? So this what I love about what I discovered is all humans, big and small, you can utilize this for them. And
Hmm.
so I'm going to bring you kind of my through my thinking process. One thing that I have been teaching for many years is growth mindset. I've worked with alongside the psychologists that worked with Carol Dweck, right? Carol Dweck is
Yes.
like the mother of growth mindset. She wrote the book Mindset, right?
Hmm.
And so I have not worked directly with her, but I've worked with the psychologists that worked with her, right? And wrote the white papers with her, all of that, right? And so I really have been at the heart of what actually growth mindset is and what it isn't, right? It's not like cute bulletin boards. And so I've been teaching it for years. And so when I was going to schools, people were saying, "Well, this teacher just needs a growth mindset." And I always had this nagging sense, is it just a growth mindset? So I started to ask, is there a human centered way to teach mindsets?
Mm.
Because what I've known for many, many years is whatever is behind our behavior is mindsets. Mindsets are the root of our behavior,
Yeah.
right?
It
If
completely affects our experience all the
I mean,
time.
yeah, all of our actions are telltales of our actual mindsets, not what we think
Hmm.
our mindsets should be, but
Yeah.
what they actually are, right? So I started to dig into the research around mindsets, and I discovered 5 mindsets that are at the heart of all of our behaviors.
Oh, wow. Five. I
5.
think a lot of people have heard of growth. That's probably the most
Yep.
popular. We've
Yep.
probably heard of maybe abundance from Stephen Covey, but
hmm
five.
5.
Five. Like
5.
let's
Yep.
let's dive in.
Yep.
I'm so
Here,
excited.
here. Here are the mindsets, right? Growth mindset is absolutely one of them. And by the way, one of the kind of things that's gotten misconstrued around growth mindsets got confused with the outcomes of mindsets, right? So growth mindset is simply a belief. It is, I believe I can improve. It is not working hard. It is
Mhm.
not resilience. Those are outcomes of a growth mindset. So one, I want
Yes.
to get that like very clear.
Hmm.
Mindsets are beliefs. Okay. So growth mindset is I believe I can improve. The next one is success mindset, which is self-efficacy. I believe I can be successful.
Mm.
The next one is belonging mindset. I believe I belong here.
Oh, so many struggle with that one.
I know. Value mindset is I
Mhm.
believe this has value for me, meaning, purpose, relevancy. And the last one is ownership mindset. I believe that by being responsible, I can change things.
I can see. I feel like Captain America. I feel like when these five things combine, you're going to
I
get this big magical,
know.
like, I can do
Oh,
anything in
Captain
life. They're
Planet. Captain
so
Planet.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Captain Planet. That's it. Yeah. Oh, so can you just give us the
Yep.
list again?
Yep.
The
Yep.
five mindsets.
Yeah. So growth mindset, I believe I can improve. Success mindset, I believe I can be successful here. Belonging mindset, I believe I belong. And sometimes I change it to I feel I belong,
Hmm.
which feels about the same to me. Value mindset is I believe this has value for me. And then ownership mindset is I believe that by being responsible, I can change things.
Man, so good. So, I mean, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Everything starts with just knowledge, right? We're
Yep.
learning this information. You've now given us data points. There's five
Hmm.
mindsets.
Hmm.
How do we take that and just say, okay, how do I ingest it, understand it, start applying it so that I can take it into insight, wisdom, and all of those other steps? So, how do we make this transition, especially when we're leading adults who struggle? And
Hmm.
ourselves, we all struggle. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
We all struggle with these five
Mhm.
mindsets.
We do. And I use this framework with myself too when I'm stuck.
Mhm.
So I ask myself, which of the mindsets am I,
Yeah.
is unsupported? So another piece of language is really important to me. Another piece of language that I'm very specific. I try my very best not to say which mindset's missing. I say which mindset's unsupported.
Oh, so good.
So you can hear the difference, right? That
Yeah.
there's actually something I can do. It's not like, oh, well, it's missing, right? There's nothing I can do about it. It's
The
not
fact that
missing.
you're choosing that language shows growth mindset, though.
Yes, yes, and even another piece of language that I use is we operate under mindsets. The moment we
Mhm.
say I have a mindset, that's a fixed way of viewing mindsets. I don't
Mm.
have a growth mindset. I operate under a growth mindset. And any and all of these mindsets we shift in and out of. And
Mhm.
all of them are on a continuum too, all of them. It's not one of the things Carol Dweck said, sorry, I'm going a little left field. I promise to bring it back here.
That's all good.
um, One of the things Carol Dweck actually wrote about was a false growth mindset. What happened was when she popularized her research, or when it became popular, right? She shared her research and it kind of, took hold and people really got excited about it. I got excited about it when I was a teacher, right? Is what ended up happening many times was fixed mindset got demonized and
Hmm.
growth mindset became the symbol of almost like being enlightened. Right? Oh,
Yes.
I'm a good person. I have a growth mindset. And the truth is we all operate under fixed mindsets at different in different areas of our life
Hmm.
and different times, right? Even in the same area.
Yeah.
And so, one, we don't want to ask if I operate under a fixed mindset. I'm all focusing on growth mindset right now, but it's when do I operate under a fixed mindset? None of
Mm.
these are good or bad.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're all on a continuum. Most of us actually operate from some mixed mindsets.
Another visual I have is that abacus, that really old thing with all the sliders,
Hmm.
the different
Yeah.
levels. And I'm like, I'm constantly, depending on
Yeah.
the situation, I can be way
Mhm.
over here to the right. And sometimes I'm over here to the left. It's a constant sliding. I can feel that. I sense it in everything that you're saying. I know that I am sliding my mindsets, left and right. I'm operating out of different versions of them constantly. It depends on who I'm around, what situation I'm in.
Right, that's exactly it, and what level you're on, right?
Yeah.
And so, one of the things us as leaders want to do first, and I have a framework around this where we map our own mindsets, is to look at where am I stuck of these 5 mindsets as
Mhm.
a leader impacting someone else,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So not I don't want you as a leader to look over there first. I
Mhm.
want you to look at yourself, right? If this person I'm working with, and I'm talking right now in the professional realm,
Yes.
right? If I'm working with someone, if I'm their leader in some capacity and they're stuck, the first question I want you to ask is, where am I stuck in impacting them,
So good.
right? And then because that colors how we view them and operate around them,
Mhm.
right? Because sometimes the shift actually needs to happen over here with me with how I view someone.
Yeah.
All right. An example of that, I have a story around that. This happened, gosh, a couple of years ago. I was working with this amazing coach, and she had been a coach for 5 years. And when I started working with her, she was stuck in impacting some of her teachers. And when I would go, I'd run PDs for her and I would show up to coach her. And every time that I would coach her, I would say, okay, like, let's reflect. I would model for her. I did all the things, right? And I would say, okay, what did you get from watching the modeling or get from PD? And she would say, well, that was a nice review. That's what she say every single time. I was flying in to work with her. It was, it's
Mhm.
a nice review. Oh, for many, many months. And I was so frustrated with her. And at some point, I discovered throughout this process, I had decided that she was difficult.
Mhm.
She's just being difficult,
Yep, added
right?
that label on her. Slapped it on
Yep.
her back.
Yep, exactly. And it was a blind spot, right? A blind
Mhm.
spot, just like when we're driving, the car is there. We just
Yeah.
can't see them. A blind spot is a mindset we have that we can't see. It was a blind spot until I finally sat down and I was like, why am I not impacting her? Right? And so I looked at those 5 mindsets. I was like, what about me is causing me to not be impactful with her? Right. And so it was my success mindset.
Mm.
I, at some point, decided, well, I'm just not going to be successful with her. She's going to, every time I show up, say, well, that was a nice review. And when I took off that lens of, right, I was kind of looking through this filter of she's difficult. I had to consciously say, well, what if she's not being difficult? What
Mhm.
now? I saw that it was actually vulnerable for her. It felt vulnerable for her to implement the coaching I was asking her to implement. And I
Yeah.
got to operate with her in a different way. I got to ask different questions and have compassion and shift from the shoulds,
Mhm.
right, to support. And I got curious and I shifted from this very rigid accountability I had moved into. I'm like, well, I'm just going to hold her accountable to curiosity, and I shifted how I worked with her. And so she got to feel safe with me to implement something new that felt vulnerable.
Oh, that's so good. And safety is such a big deal for
Mhm.
people to be open to learning
Mhm.
anything
Mhm.
or to have those conversations. If you're enjoying the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss a single episode. Also, be sure to rate the show. We hope to earn 5 stars in serving you in leadership, and through your ratings, it'll help us get the word out about what we do here at Leadership on the Rocks. Now, back to the show. And so often we come in of just I just love it so much, the should, shifting from should to support
Mhm.
and staying
Mhm.
curious and looking inward first. Looking at your domain, your impact, it always starts with self. The self of looking inward, and then that spills into how I engage with them relationship wise. And
Mhm.
once that relationship changes, it's like everything else just busts wide open
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
everything else to happen as far as buy-in of not just buy-in but conversation,
Mhm.
communication, and understanding and empathy and all the things. It's just what you're delivering is such good stuff. I'm so excited. Keep talking.
So I mean, I do want to share something around the context of resistance because I've really been digging in for 8 years now around resistance. Like, what causes it? Why
Hmm.
does it happen? Why is it such a widespread problem? And so I really looked at when does it start? And it
Mm.
actually starts with our expectations from the moment we hire someone. So I
Oh.
want I want everyone to look at who are we hiring, right?
Hmm.
So I'm going to give the example with schools, but I know organizations do the same thing, right? we hire critical thinkers, right? We interview people and we're asking them questions and looking at their resume and
Hmm.
calling the references, right? And one of the things that we want all of our people to have is a skill of critical thinking. We want
Yes.
them to be able to come into a classroom, to make differentiated lesson plans, to to be able to pivot when change needs to happen, when something isn't working well, not to keep plugging along, right? And and when we have what schools generally have is a compliance culture, default compliance culture. And what I mean by that is the way we do school in the US is someone up top has bought something. Usually they've spent lots of money on this curriculum, for
Yes.
example. And they've said, okay, we spent $1 million on this reading curriculum. We need everyone below to implement this. We spent a lot of money. We need
Hmm.
everyone to do this, right? And so our beautiful critical thinkers that we have hired are now being told to implement a change that they didn't choose.
Oh, you are hitting the nail on the head. Yes.
And some of those folks will say, okay, I'll do it. Some of your people are like, oh, okay, right? They're your yes people. They're your direction followers. They're
Hmm.
like, okay, not a problem. Just tell me what to do. Tell me the expectations and I'll do it. And they'll run and do it. And some people won't. And what I want to share with everyone is sometimes that grappling and they're
Hmm.
critically thinking about that change. They're putting that change up against their own core values, what they believe is best, right? They're grappling with this change. Sometimes that looks like resistance. That certainly looked like resistance for me when I was a teacher.
Hmm.
I was not one of those immediate acceptors. I'm like, I was usually like, I don't know if this is a good idea, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone had to really sell me into it and
Hmm.
show me why it was a good idea. And it wasn't a problem, right? I was a good person. I cared about children. It was because I cared and because I was a critical thinker that I initially resisted change,
Absolutely.
right?
You got to go through the process. And thinking about the leader in that position, so often, I mean, again, this does not matter the industry. You're handed
Hmm.
a mandate that you may not necessarily agree with, buy into, and yet
Hmm.
now you have to implement it and get other people on board. It can be just such a very just messy process. And
Hmm.
so just kind of walk us through what do we do now that we understand why resistance can exist,
Hmm.
where it kind of starts, right? You've pinpointed where
Yeah.
it starts. And then now we're in the thick of it and we have this initiative coming top to bottom, this mandate.
Hmm.
What, as a leader, what do we do? Like,
What do
that's
we
an
do,
awkward
right?
spot to be in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So as a leader, right, of course, we're going to let everyone know, hey, this change is happening, right? And then we're going to say, hey, go ahead and do it, right? This is how you do it. We're going to teach everyone
Hmm.
how to do it and go ahead and implement. And then some folks will and some folks won't, right? Or there's somewhere in the middle. Some will partially
Hmm.
do it or do it
Yeah.
incorrectly, right? And that's where we go in and one of the most important skills a coach and a leader can have is the ability to listen.
Hmm. Oh, say that again. That needs a repeat.
One of the most important skills a coach and leader needs to have is the ability to listen.
Hmm.
And not just listening as kind of we default listen as humans, but to actually be trained in high quality listening, right?
Hmm.
And that actually takes training because the way that we listen as a human, the way humans listen, we don't hear the words that are coming out of people's mouths. We don't. We
We
don't
don't.
hear.
We listen
We
to
don't.
respond, thinking about what I'm going to
Yes,
say back to you. Yeah.
exactly. Yes. We are not listening to their words. We're evaluating and assessing and judging what they're saying,
Mm,
right? So I'm not listening to the words that are coming out of your mouth. I'm listening to the words, my words, right? My thoughts about your words.
yeah.
That's what I'm listening. It's like, on Zoom, how you have your image, right? Your camera image next to mine, right?
Uh-huh.
It's like when we're on Zoom and I'm staring at myself fixing my hair as you're talking. I'm like, I'm totally listening. I'm really present,
Yeah.
right? It's like we're looking in the mirror when we're listening to people and we think we're
Hmm.
great listeners. I'm totally listening. I'm
Yeah.
present, right? And so what we want to do is actually get trained and practice. This is a muscle that I constantly work every day. The muscle of listening to the words people are saying. This is a conscious decision I make moment to moment and day to day.
Mm.
All right. And so when I can start to hear the words they are saying, not my opinions and thoughts about what they're saying, I can start to assess what's going on over there that's
Hmm.
causing the resistance.
Yeah. Do you
And
think that as you're actively listening, you're trying to make sense of it
mhm,
and
mhm,
understanding the words that they're actually saying?
mhm.
And is it natural to start with an assumption, but then to be able to shift from assumption to asking a curious question to find out more, to find out the meaning behind what they're saying? Is that connected? Like the curiosity of I'm trying to listen. I don't want to judge. I don't want to evaluate, but I have to start with something to get me to then stay curious and dive deeper for true understanding to happen.
What do you mean by assumption?
Well, I don't know. I mean, like if you're talking to me right now
Mhm,
and you're
mhm,
explaining all of these things, and let's say your tone is a little off. I mean, I start with the assumption of that tone doesn't sound safe or vulnerable, or maybe it sounds a little aggravated. So I'm making the assumption there's something off with the tone. So then that switches my brain to say, ask a different question to just press into that a little bit more because that's where my brain is hovering as I'm trying to listen, but it does sound like there's a little something off. So
mhm.
I'm
That is
just what.
interesting. Yeah. I've never heard someone name it that, and it kind of is an assumption now that I think about it. Is it's you get a spidey sense,
Yes.
right? You're
Oh, that's an even better way to say it. Spidey sense.
the spidey sense, like something's off, and all of
Yeah.
us are equipped with this human
Yeah.
sense. We're equipped with it from being a baby,
Hmm.
right? We are wired to connect, right? And so when we are actually trying to connect with someone and we get this sense like they're not fully connected, that's real. And so
Hmm.
yes, absolutely. You get this sense, ooh, something's off here. And then you ask a curious question, right?
Oh.
And this is where, and it's like I don't have the perfect question to ask.
Hmm.
Right? It needs to come from that moment, right?
Hmm.
It could be, are you okay? It could be, how are things going?
Hmm.
Right? It could be, what's on your mind? Right? I don't have the perfect question, but it needs to be something that comes from curiosity in that moment to genuinely find out what's going on over there with them.
Hmm.
There's something really interesting as I've been doing the neurologically. There's a couple things I want to share about neuroscience. Um, one of them is there's two parts of the brain that are kind of activated and deactivated when we feel safe and unsafe. And I don't know if you kind of know the hand model, but I'll share it, and I'm doing it on camera if
Love
folks are
it.
kind of
That
watching
means you got
this.
to go watch this on YouTube so you can see it.
Yes, watch us on YouTube. So we have the smart part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, and
Hmm.
this is the part that has all of our executive functioning skills, our problem solving, our critical thinking, our ability to be logical and think sequential and act professionally. It all lives here in this prefrontal cortex. In the center of our brain is the amygdala. And this is in charge of our survival. So this is where our fear gets processed.
Hmm.
And when our amygdala gets triggered, we go into survival mode. This is they would call us the reptilian brain too, but this is a very like primal part of our brain. The amygdala does not speak logic, right?
Hmm.
And it can go into very black and white thinking as well as us versus them. It's very
Yeah.
protective, and it's to keep us alive. It's very important, right? And it keeps us, and the lion's attacking us. This is fight or
Hmm.
flight lives in the amygdala, right? So when someone feels unsafe with someone they're talking to, whether or not you, the leader, whether or not you think you're a safe person or you think you're trustworthy, right? If the person you're talking to, for whatever reason, feels unsafe, they essentially flip their lid. Their prefrontal cortex goes offline. That smart part of their brain, the part
Yeah.
that can reason with you, their amygdala takes over, and that's where you get those big reactions. And
Mm.
they can go into silence or violence, right? So sometimes you'll get this outburst, right? That very external, and sometimes
Hmm.
they'll shut down.
Yeah.
right? That's their amygdala keeping them safe. So when we authentically listen to someone, we hear the words they are saying, we help them put their lid down.
Oh, that's so good.
And that's the thing that we want to do first.
Hmm.
Help people put their lid down.
I love
Be-
that you're giving me not only the visual, but the understanding of being able to read a situation whenever tone gets high, stances get big or shrunken. I don't even know if I said that appropriately, but whenever there's a shift in the atmosphere, whenever you can sense that, like what I need to anchor my mind on is that visual of, is their amygdala, is their lid flipped up? How
Mhm.
can I get
Yep.
it flipped back down into safety and into rational thought and communication? But that
Mhm.
requires a lot of listening. And what I have found, I've sat through some very difficult conversations, right? From just conflict to releasing employees, a whole bunch of hard conversations. And I can think of so many examples as you were talking where situations where I knew the moment that lid was flipped
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
everything shifted in that room. And it's how do you get it back to safety? How do you get it back to safety? And a lot of times, what I had learned is by almost paraphrasing what they're saying to me,
Yeah.
it does not mean I agree
Mhm.
with this, but it does mean that I'm hearing your
Mhm.
perspective
Mhm.
enough to I can repeat it back to you. Is this what you're saying? So
Mhm.
that I can have further understanding so that we can move the conversation forward. And I
Mhm.
think that's really hard for a lot of leaders is to acknowledge the fact of, well, you know what? You are toxic towards me. You're creating a toxic work. They may be
Mhm.
spewing some horrible, horrible things at you that may not be true. They may be true, but
Mhm.
they may not be true.
Mhm.
But to acknowledge what they're saying, to try to get,
Mhm.
get that lid back down, I love it. The visual, I'm
Yep.
going to anchor that my thought on this for a long, long time on lots of
Yeah.
conflict. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what you just described is called reflective listening. Some people call it active listening, which is much more of a bigger umbrella. Reflective listening is one part where we're reflecting back what they're saying. And
Hmm.
a new term I recently came upon, which I really like, is looping for understanding.
Looping.
Looping
Okay.
for understanding. And what I like about that is what a thing I say often is understanding is not the same thing as agreement. And I just wrote a blog about this.
Hmm.
But it's when we understand someone, it's just what you said. It does not mean we agree with them.
Yeah.
And that is totally that is something that we want. I want all leaders to hear. We want people to feel understood, even
Hmm.
if we don't agree with them. And the second kind of neuroscience thing I wanted to share that's often not known of is called neural entrainment. And this is what
Entrainment.
neural entrainment. And this is what scientists found is that people that are highly skilled at communication and therefore kind of the ability to influence others, which is called positional and personal leadership. So it's the kind of personal leadership, personal power. Sorry, it's power, not leadership. But there's two types of power. There's positional power and personal power. But personal power is the ability to influence someone else, right? I'm sorry,
Mhm.
I'm going around, and I'm coming back to neuroscience here. But neural entrainment is what they found is highly skilled communicators when they have this skill of the ability to get into someone else's world. And what I mean by that is they are not only hearing the words they're saying, they're hearing between, I call it between the words, what they're not saying. And they
Hmm.
get so aligned with them that what they found, they studied these people and they put EEG caps, I think is what they're called, the
Yeah.
fMRI machines, and they studied their brain waves, that their brain waves started aligning with the person they were talking to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I just feel like it's Mary Poppins where you can just jump in that chalk painting and just like become, in the experience with somebody else and truly
Yeah.
understand. That's true empathy. I'm
Yeah.
understanding what you're saying and where you're coming from.
Yeah, yeah. And really being there with them, right?
Yeah.
Alongside them. And the one thing we have to give up to be able to do that is judgment.
Woo. That's hard. That's hard to do.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, in thinking about this, as leaders, right, we know that we have to lead, we have to, roll out initiatives, mandates, things like that. And then, whenever we begin to communicate that and we meet behaviors showcasing resistance at a point.
Mhm.
You talk about that you can overcome that without manipulation, without those things. And so you've given us a lot
Mhm.
of internal things that we start with. And I love that so
Mhm.
much. Leaders, it starts with you. You're not
Mhm.
putting a label on somebody else. You're not judging them, evaluating them. You're starting with yourself of, am I truly listening?
Mhm.
What are my own fixed, what are my five levels of mindsets on this? And where am I at on that abacus sliding spectrum scale?
Yes.
And then you approach them with empathy and curiosity to
Mhm.
figure out the root cause of their thoughts, of just understanding where they're at so that
Mhm.
you know how to take that next step with them. And
Yeah.
that's such a deep psychological dynamic. And I think leaders so often just, you know what, it's just easier if I say do it because I told you so and I'm your boss.
Mhm. Yeah.
Versus all of the psychological work that you just explained to us. But one, you're going to get compliance, which leads to bitterness and good people leaving. And the other
Mhm.
one leads to deeper connection, relationship, better work. We want the better work, but it's almost like you said with the gym. I have resistance against the gym too.
Mhm.
If we go that route, we're going to be healthier for it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
help us as we kind of wrap up, you know, where do leaders go whenever they're rolling out something, initiative or mandate, and then they start to see those behaviors of resistance? Like, give us those go tos of, okay, here's the key takeaway. Here's how you step into that behavior of resistance and what to do next.
So one thing we want to do is build connection. It's so interesting that people will say, "Oh, it's like therapy." They'll say, and I'm like, "This is what human connection is. This is about humanity, not about therapy, right?" It's actually,
Mhm.
it's so one thing I want to tell leaders is that moments, right? So we tell our whole staff whatever the change is, right? Of course, every leader is doing that's not a secret. All right, everyone, this change is happening, right?
Yep.
I'm going to here are my PowerPoint slides of what the change is. We're going to practice how to do the change, right? And then
Hmm.
off you go do the change, right? And then as the leader, I'm going to go around and see if the change is happening, right? And then I have some folks doing it and some folks partially doing it and some not doing it at all. And one of the things I want you to do, leaders, is to put down your armor. It's a Brene
Oh.
Brown language. Put down your
Hmm.
armor and create connection. So the action I want you to do is go to those teachers and ask, how's it going? What's
Mm.
the barrier to you implementing this change? And
Wow.
then listen non-judgmentally but curiously. You are on a fact-finding mission. You are a mindset detective right now,
Hmm.
right? I like to call it being a professional noticer, right? And you want to hear and you're listening for, this is a skill to develop. You're listening for what's needs support, which of the five mindsets, and you're now equipped to listen for. Do they not feel they can be successful? Do they not find value in this change? Do they not
Hmm.
feel like they're part of the team? Or maybe they don't trust something about this change,
Yeah.
right? And then once you figure out which of those mindsets is unsupported, you want to go address that, right? Because helping someone feel they belong in the team would be a totally different action than
Hmm.
helping someone value the change. Totally
Absolutely.
different actions to take.
And you know what I was thinking, so often mentally, so if I operate out of perfectionism or high achieving or things like that, whenever I roll out something and I have resistance, then it's almost like, oh, what can I do to get everybody on board? I just want to, find it quicker because I want to win. I want to get there.
Uh-huh.
I want to check my box that I'm a good leader.
Mhm.
And so
Yes.
often it's that own internal mental game of I'm trying to get to the buy-in as quickly as possible
Mhm.
so that I feel good. It's almost like image management. I want
Mhm.
to control my image that I'm a good leader.
Mhm.
And so much of this is having me strip all of those thoughts and saying, looking at humanity. And I love that you were talking about that. This is humanity as a whole
Mhm.
is no matter what is rolled out, who rolls it out, how they roll it out, there is going to be some resistance because that
Mhm.
is a very natural process because
Mhm.
people operate different. You have your early
Mhm.
adopters that are just going to go do it. Then you have your people who, with just a little more structure, a little more information, they'll feel more safe, they'll take it. And then you're going to have your, probably third that are just like, not, I
Mhm.
don't think so.
Mhm.
Um, and so working through that, I think you've just stripped a lot of that stress that I think are
Mhm,
added to leaders by saying,
mhm.
expect it. And then now
Yeah.
you have a game plan on how to meet it. And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter who is in that resistant pile or the early adopter pile or the mid level pile that's going to go either way with the top third or the bottom third or whatever. Expect it. It's
Yeah.
human nature. And now you
Mhm,
have a game plan with your framework of how to
mhm,
approach it. And I
mhm.
think it's a beautiful thing. And I think leaders definitely need to listen to this episode twice to go in and understand it so they know how to approach resistance.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And what's exciting is all of this can be applied to children as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw when growth mindset really got popularized, we saw growth mindset being taught to children and not adults. And
Yeah.
so what's really, I'm writing a book on this exact thing. And it's
Yay!
for leaders to learn about this, because if us as adults do not utilize this framework ourselves
Mm-hmm.
first, children will never have the chance to utilize it for themselves.
Oh, it's so good, man. All right. So, in thinking about all of the amazing things that you've talked to us about of how to start with self, how to stay
Mhm.
curious, not judgmental, ask those questions, dive deeper, assess, our own levels of mindsets and where we're at on that spectrum. Let's flip the opposite. What is one poor decision that you would warn our leaders to avoid? Like, leader, don't do this thing. You're better than that.
Mm. And I think and I've said this very often in this episode, but I'm going to say it again. Leader, listen first.
Mm.
Don't talk first. Listen first. Ask and then shut up and listen.
I love it. And I need that frankness. Shut up, Bethany. Listen, listen, listen. So good.
Yeah.
All right, Becca, where can our listeners go to learn more about you, your work? And I've heard with the mindsets, number one, I'm excited
Mhm.
for you writing that book, but I've also heard that you have a quiz. So tell us
Mhm.
all
I
the
do.
things. Where can we learn more about you and your work with these catalyst mindsets?
So my company is the Whole Educator. So my website is thewholeeducator.com. I do have a free interactive quiz where you can actually find out which mindset is most unsupported in your team. And so I guess we'll provide that
Yes, it'll
link.
be in the show notes. Absolutely.
Uh-huh. Perfect. So I'm excited. And so right at the end of you taking that, it'll let you know which mindset is most unsupported. And then you'll get emailed an ebook that gives you more information about all of the mindsets, because we just kind of got the tip of the iceberg here
Mhm.
and there's much more to learn. You can also go to my website in the free resources section. There's the free quiz and there's also the free ebook kind of separate from it if you just want to go to town and learn more. And you can also find me on my podcast, Coaching the Whole Educator, where I talk about a human centered approach to coaching and leadership.
This is amazing. And leaders, I just hope you're grasping this is as a leader, you're leading people. People are human. You need all
Hmm.
of this psychology that Becca is talking about so that you know how to step in and approach, number one, your own thoughts, your own mindsets, but then how to engage with others. It's such good stuff. Becca, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. It was fabulous. I can't wait to take the quiz and get the ebook. I want to learn more. This is amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Guys, until next time, continue putting in the work of building your life and leadership on the rocks, the essential rocks. God bless. Remember, the most essential rock you can build your life and leadership on is the rock of Jesus Christ. Today's Bible verse comes from Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. I, therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace.